Good morning, YouTube. Another beautiful day. It's mid-December and we're going to be about 70 degrees today. So I'm taking full advantage of the weather and trying to get it as much done as I can before it does change, and start thinking about things that I need to be doing for spring before spring actually gets here. You know, I don't mind being ahead of the game. Today we're going to cover the winch that came along with this Kawasaki Mule, and the winch on this machine is the Warren 4000, and it has 4,000 pound pulling capacity. But we're going to cross over the manual and actually show how to stretch the rope, how to get it re-spooled back onto the winch itself, and then how to best utilize the winch. So, coming straight out of the manual, I hope you enjoyed the video and I hope it helps you in some way. Thanks for watching. There's a lot of good information in here. It shows you various ways of hooking the winch up in order to get your machine out of the mud, be it wherever it's hung up. Shows you how to use snatch blocks or external pulleys. And it, you know, actually I gotta say, they took some time and thought actually into the manual to actually help you out. Now this is the winch on front of the Mule. Your application may be different, how it's set up, but all of these winches are going to work primarily the same. And you can see the rope there, not spooled on evenly, and what happens is when you have your rope crossing over different sections like it is here, and if you put this under a really strong strain, it will actually kink or bend your cable. You want to keep this stuff spooled up as tight and evenly as you can. And the last time I rolled this up, I didn't get it quite as even on the spool as I would like it. So we're going to follow the instructions in the manual and actually spool this thing up like it's supposed to be. Now these are your guide pulleys that keeps, and again, your application may be a little bit different, but that keeps the rope going in straight to the winch if you're pulling off from the sides or down at an angle. So it just helps to roll the cable back up for you. Okay? And then over here, you can see the switch. Forward, where it is setting now, is engaged. And then if I want to release the winch, I have to push this clutch back into neutral. And now I can grab a hold of the cable itself and spool it out. Okay? Now I've got myself a nice large tree here. I'm going to put me a chain around that so I can get the hook of the cable hooked to it. And then we're just simply going to back down here. I'm out here by myself, so what I'm going to do is I'll get the cable spooled out. The manual says to leave a minimum of 5 rounds on the spool. Never empty the spool completely because you can pull the cable out. So we're going to leave 5 rounds on the spool, and then we are going to simply winch it from that direction all the way back up to this tree, keeping it tight. And I'm going to keep my pulling point down just about as close to the ground as I can to actually keep a straight line to the winch. That way it's not trying to drag up or down. Alright, I got the parking brake engaged. And we're just simply going to come down here and put the clutch in neutral. So now we can grab a hold of our cable strap here, stretch this out. Okay? You can see again, if you get it, as soon as you let any slack into your rope and you get all this cable stretching across itself, it can damage your rope. So this makes sense. We're going to get it stretched back on there tight the way it's supposed to be. And another thing to mention here, guys, I am using leather gloves. This is a metal cable on here, and if that cable is frayed any place and you start sliding your hands along it, if you don't have gloves on, it's going to stick you. I mean, I don't think I have any frays in here. The cable's still new, but we're going to just be cautious just in case. Alright, so that's our stationary point. I believe this is spooled with 50 feet of rope, cable. This is a great time to go ahead and inspect your cable at its full length. Make sure you don't have any frays or anything like that. Like I said, when you start putting this stuff under an extreme load, what will happen is it will flatten itself out, and then if it's continued to be used like that, it will actually damage your cable and make it to the point to where it won't roll up properly any longer for you. Okay? Now you can also use synthetic rope. It's about the same. It's going to be a little more difficult to deal with, but will give you the same purpose. The steel cable is going to be stronger. You're going to get a lot more use out of that. And like I said, be really careful. Like right here, see there's a flat spot. Make sure you can see that. And if you continuously roll this rope up where it's covering over itself, then that's how you make those flat spots in your cable. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a little bit of the tension off of here. I'm going to slide all of that really tight, and then we're just going to spool it back in, allowing the weight of the machine to keep the cable tight for us. Let me get the remote switch out and we'll get started. One thing to mention here, guys, is this thing pulls a lot of power from your battery. So once I get the switch hooked up and we're ready to start winching, I'm always going to make sure my machine's running so we're not draining the battery down. Then the second thing to mention is out of the manual, this machine is weighing about 1,800 pounds, and what the manual says is do not run the winch longer than about 10 to 15 seconds before you allow it to cool down. Okay? So in other words, you get this thing into a hard strain, you don't want to just continuously try to keep winching because you can burn your winch up. Alright? So we're going to run about 10-15 seconds, and then we'll let the winch cool down a little bit, and then we'll move forward. Okay? We get this hooked up and started. Okay, so now we've got our cable pretty much as tight to the side there as we can get it. Again, now as we're winching it up, I am going to continuously pull this cable over to get our first run tight, because then as you're spooling up, each consecutive round as it comes across the spool will land in between the previous spool. And that's what keeps your cable good and solid and from getting flat spots. Now if you have any slack in your cable, then you have to start over, because as soon as you put a little bit of slack in there, it back spools and everything's going to move forward on you. Ready? Like I said, I'm just going to pull a little bit of tension again. Okay. We're going to let the winch cool down just a little bit. Alright. We've got a good solid run going. Let's go a little bit further. Against the cable guide. Alright, we'll stop right there. It looks good so far. Now we're going to let it cool down a little bit. Now as you become more familiar with your winch, you can actually see if the motor's getting hot. You don't have to overwork the winch, but you don't have to wait on it continuously either. everything's rolling up nice and tight. Another thing to mention here, now the more cable you have on your winch, the more likely it is to cross spool itself and just be more apt to be more difficult to work with. Okay, now there, once it made tight to this side, it started to re-spool back over and it's left a gap in there. So what I'm going to have to do is back the winch off just a little bit and pull the cable into itself, because I want it to continuously go across straight. Don't let a bunch of slack in here, because if you do, you will lose all your progress. Okay? And again, I'm just keeping tension on it. Alright, let's let our winch cool down. Now that is, even with the weight of the machine on it, it is extremely difficult to get that cable to roll up 100% tight, as tight as I would like it. But our side guide rollers, that's a pretty good size gap they have in there. So again, with what we're working with there, that still works. And by pulling against the machine, the weight of the machine itself, that's actually stretching your cable out. And that makes a difference too. So each time you stretch that cable out like that, it's going to be able to roll up just a little bit tighter. Now, there's a lot of information in the manual for this winch, and shows you various ways of hooking up if you need to pull off to the side, different things like that, in order to get your machine where it needs to go, how to use snatch blocks, extra pulleys, how to actually add to the capacity of the winch. So read your manual, it'll tell you about all this stuff, and actually I gotta say it was thorough. Now like I said too, the more you use something like this, the more familiar you become with it. And again, never get your fingers up when you're pulling that cable in, because you know, you don't want to hurt yourself. And I gotta say, there's plenty of slack in their handle here, so that worked out good. Back in there. So, I have had this thing hooked up back there to where the emergency brake was set as tight as it could be set, and I was standing on the brake inside the cab, and the winch was still dragging this machine. So again, more than enough power, but you never run those little motors for long periods of time. Give them a chance to cool down when you've got a heavy load on there, and your winch will last you a long time. This is the first time I've ever experienced this particular brand, so you guys are learning it as I am. But so far, I like it. So I hope this video is helpful for you. I hope you're having a lot of fun if you have a machine like this, ATV, four-wheeler, it doesn't matter. And they're really fun to ride around on, and also you can get a lot of work out of the machine. So thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next video.